Hello and welcome back. I'm here with the Anxioneers again, and we're going to be talking about something that's in the very end of the Embracing Anxiety book, which is about self-care in anxious times, like these. And I make a suggestion for something called the 4 Pillars of a Whole Life, which my husband Tino learned about in a retreat that he went on with mythologist Michael Mead, poet Luis Rodriguez, African Dogara healer Malidoma Somé, and Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield. And they talked about how to create the 4 pillars of a whole life, which are art, practice, ritual, and community. And we have kept that as pillars of our own lives ever since then, and we share it in the DEI community as well. So I'd like to introduce you to the Anxioneers and my DEI colleagues, all of whom are dual licensed as DEI consultants and trainers. On my level is Bobbi McIntyre from South Carolina. And below her on my screen is Sandi Davis from California. And below me is Sherry Olander from Virginia and New York and parts in between. So before we started filming, we were talking about which one of these would we want to take? Which one do we feel either most active with, skilled with, or the most in need of? And going back to look at this again, I'm looking at, well, what am I missing out on in my own 4 pillars? I know, Sandi, that you feel the most stable and grounded in art, in the pillar of art. What are you doing art-wise?
I knit and I bake and I do some art journaling, and I take a really broad view of what art is. It's not just studio art or something that I'm doing to present to someone else, but it's all of the ways that my creativity is given space in my life. And that goes from, knitting to baking to more formalized sorts of art. And most all of it is just for me. It's not a public thing, but those art practices and tapping into all of those different ways that my creativity wants to be expressed really does help my anxiety have some place to go, particularly when I don't have a lot of words for it, or when the words I do have just don't feel like enough. Mm-hmm. So I find like that art not only helps me name something that may not be fully nameable, but it also helps the energy flow through and help me work through it. So it's been really useful as anxiety is just overall so heightened right now, that particularly when I don't have anything concrete I can do, I can have an art practice that lets the emotion flow.
I like that. The idea, like, I make jewelry, and sometimes it's just really important for me to get in that very small moving beads around, in tiny ways, which one should go where. And there's a way that it sort of settles everything. Just choosing the right bead and choosing the right crystal is like, that's how you do it. And it does seem to make the rest of my life feel a little bit more organized. So yeah.
I have been known to sort through my beads, because I have the general ones that just get dumped into a small bowl, and I will sometimes actually sort them out like grains of sand, and it does kind of help me sort, like, oh yes, I can create order, and this makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very calming.
Yeah, organizing and creating order is so important for anxiety, even if everything else cannot be put in order. Like right now, things cannot be put in order, and it helps to bring your anxiety closer to you and onto the table, or something that you can do, something that you can complete. I find that's really helpful.
It's one of the things I really value about art is that it it has this very messy quality to it, but it's not messy. There's a lot of chaos that goes on, and then like some thread comes out and you can follow that thread, and then things start to fall together. So it's a great kind of metaphor for a lot of what's going on now, all of this chaos that then can be brought into something and go, oh, I recognize myself there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I like that.
that's pleasing to me. Those beads in that order are pleasing to me.
At least right here, things are organized and they look as they should. And Bobbi, of the 4 pillars, which one do you feel most settled in?
I use the practices a
Mhm.
lot. I use all of them actually, grounding and focusing. I have to do that a lot. My anxiety can get really big, especially around what's going on in the world today. So I do that one, and then the burning contracts I do all the time. All the time. I do it a lot while I'm driving, because I can yell and I can put a lot of energy into whatever it is I'm wanting to burn. I do a lot of the rejuvenation. I do that daily, and that really helps. And then the uh, okay, just all the practices. I just do them
Not just
all.
complaining, yeah. And then resourcing. Yeah,
Resourcing and conscious complaining.
yeah.
That's the one.
There you
That,
go.
burning contracts, conscious complaining, my 2 biggest ones. And I'll do conscious complaining in the car too, because that's the only time I'm really alone. So
Yeah.
I can get a lot out that way. And that really does help to surface your emotions and help them have a voice, and help them actually express what they have been wanting to express and get it out into the open.
Yeah.
And then they can settle back down, and I can handle whatever it is that needs to be handled.
Yeah. Yeah. So many people's response right now is just like I'm seeing a lot of don't be afraid, don't be anxious, don't panic, don't be so it's all about repression. And
Right.
if emotions are supposed to be coming forward to help you do things, if you repress them, that's not the best idea. So
No.
it's nice to have all these different practices for the emotions. And I was thinking about conscious complaining for anxiety, not conscious questioning for anxiety.
Right.
And that one's been helping me when I get overwhelmed. And I can write down the list. What have you ever done anything like this before? Was it successful? Is there anyone who you can ask for help? Because I think a lot of us just get very isolated.
Yeah.
We get very isolated.
Right.
And so I'll talk about community unless Sherry wants to. Which one do you want? I'll do either one. Which one are you most interested in?
Oh, I see. I have a hard time choosing. I can talk about either as well. I'll probably touch on all of them. So.
Okay. I can talk about community, which is something that is hard to do right now because we cannot be together. So I've been reaching out to a lot of different communities online. If I have any kind of interest, I'll go see if there's a Facebook group about it. And I'm taking courses online, and then we have each other, and we have the Anxioneers, and in the DEI community, we do meet and do things together. So that's been really helpful for me, especially politically, because now I'm joining more political communities to see, well, what can be done, in the face of fascism and other things like that, and the breakdown of so many systems, what can be done. Because I think without community, I would feel hopeless. It would feel sort of like there's nothing that can be done. And to find all these communities who are doing things and being able to join them and talk to them has been really helpful for me. Really helpful. There's a community for everything on Facebook. Everything. Clog dancing. They've got a huge community. I don't want to do that though.
I think kazoo players. I think there was a commercial.
Kazoo players, it's okay. It doesn't have to be political. It can be kazoo focused. Thank you. And then Sherry, we left the ritual for you, but you can hit all of them.
Yeah, well, as you were talking, I was thinking about how ritual is similar to both community and art in that I liked how Sandi was talking about when you kind of you don't have the words, you can't, express, like going to art, whatever that is for you, it could be anything, is a way to express without words, or unless if you're writing, of course, then you're using words, but, just in a way that is more symbolic perhaps than literal. And I feel like ritual is similar in that, but it comes, whereas I think art is when you have so much inside that needs to come out. Ritual is what we go to when we can't access the resources that we need in our immediate literal world. And so having a way to engage with, spiritual world or nature or, ancestors, whatever that is for us, is really important and helpful. Especially, in times like this when things are just overwhelming and there aren't any answers. There aren't any kind of clear-cut answers. I find, and in terms of community, that too, like people are struggling having community, but you can go to ritual to touch base with, either your ancestors or the natural world, or even I like to remind people that ancestors can also be, authors, or you don't have to be people you're related to, but, just people you admire, people you're drawn to from history, or even, from literature that were never real, alive, but have become real and therefore accessible through ritual.
Yeah. I like that. She brought it all together. Wait, what about practice? No, you do your practice during ritual, right?
Yeah, well, the thing I was saying before we got on, I think is worth mentioning, just that with anxiety, especially in terms of the emotions, all of these things, like having the practices, having these things in place, even if you don't necessarily do them every day, but having familiarity with them allows your anxiety to be able to access them when it needs to, and instead of your anxiety trying to be like, okay, we need to do this and this, but not having any idea of how. If you have the 4 pillars in place, your anxiety can remember, oh, that was helpful then, this is what we need to do now, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it helps me to go through it and say, oh, how am I doing? Have I dropped art, or have I dropped anything? And then why? And it's usually time and ignorance. Like busyness plus ignorance.
There's also a way that they weave together. It's not that the ritual becomes the practice that becomes the art that then creates community. Yeah. I'm working on a baby blanket for my sister's friend. And I realized as I was working last night, there was art there in the creation, and there was practice, and there was like this ritual, because particularly around baby things, I put a lot of meaning into that, like, welcoming a new being into the world with something handcrafted. It's important. And in the community, this is going to live in a family with, a new human welcomed into it. And so it kind of brought all of the pillars into this one act that in the moment I grabbed because it would calm me down, so I find that helpful too. Like, look at what I'm already doing and seeing if there's elements in here that I can consciously acknowledge, and it enriches what it is that I'm doing. It gives it a more of a grounding in something that that I like to do when I remember, because there's that remembering piece.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
practices are a type of ritual because you have a beginning, a middle, and an end anyway. So I've always viewed the practices as one of the rituals I use.
Yeah. And Bobbi, I know that you live with horses, or they live with you. I don't know which one it is. But there's that community of animals that you have.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am so grateful for my animals. They're they've been, especially my horses, have been my saving grace so many times. You just come around them, and I have one horse in particular who is very grounded, and she's very calming to be around. She'll just stand there and put her little head against my leg and breathe. And that is so calming.
So community can have four legs. Well, thank you for sharing the four pillars of art, ritual, practice, and community, and what you are doing and what you would like to do. All of this helps so much, not just with anxiety, but with all the emotions and with your entire life. It is the four pillars of a whole life. So I hope that that you can take some of these pillars away and support yourself during this difficult time or any difficult time. Did I forget anything? No? Thank you so much for being here with us. Anxioneers out. Thank you.